Welcome back to the devlog for Feast of Fiends. With Thanksgiving around the corner, I'm not going to be making a ton of progress this week, but what I can talk about is a progress that I've already made. So without any further ado, here's Players. Based on a variable stored in the game mode on the start of the map, the game spawns and possesses human-controlled players. Right now, it only spawns player-controlled characters. Eventually, this will have to spawn AI characters as well, which will be a whole headache based on comparing player-controlled characters minus the total amount of players in the match, and then assigning them to spawn locations, and it's going to have to do a whole bunch of other things too. But that's all a problem for future me. Sorry, future me. Camera. Next, I did some stuff with the camera. I followed some tutorial for the main setup by the YouTube user Strigifo? I'll just put a link in the description. Anyway, this gave me the zoom in and out feature based on the player's positions. This is pretty much done using math, which compares the position of the players to one another. The further they are from one another, the further out the camera zooms. Then, using that as a jumping point, I made the camera pan and tilt towards the players if they congregate towards one end of the board or another. It really makes it feel like the camera is following the players and the action. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to go into more detail about how I got this to work. But right now, I'm just going to ramble through how this works on a very surface level. I don't want to bog it down with too many details. Firstly, I created a simple blueprint actor to use as an edge of the arena detector. Having one on the right and one on the bottom of the playable map, I was able to use their distance to the camera compared to the player's distance to the camera to find a percentage. This percentage multiplied by the inverse of the max tilt angle achieved a desirable result. It's subtle, but I think it adds more interest to the game feel than a flat top-down view. Menu. I had a really cool idea for the way items would work. You would go into a cabinet or something, and a menu would pop up showing you what was inside of it. Then you would select from that list what items you wanted to take out and have in your hand. Then I wound up scrapping the menu I spent a devoted weekend on after realizing I wouldn't be able to get an AI to use it. See, the idea was to have players possess a cursor and then highlight and select the item they wanted and add it to their hand. I almost had this working for the player-controlled characters. While I was working on the menu, I was simultaneously watching a video by PatchQuest, another devlog channel, on making artificial intelligence. One of the pitfalls they recommended avoiding was having overly complicated AI issues.
Redesign your game so that this tricky situation never turns up.
You won't have an issue to solve if you design around the issue. It's a pretty cool video, and I'll share it in the description below. I realized from this, I had no idea how I would program in that menu functionality in the AI competitors, so I decided to redesign the whole mechanic. Now, sticking to a more arcade approach, I'm limiting the items one can bring into a match, and for the most part, completely scratching the in-game menu. The plus side of this is it's going to force players into each other's space, forcing them to steal ingredients from each other. Items. I could salvage some of the knowledge I gained from working on the menu though. Not all was lost. I had to do a lot of figuring out how widgets work in Unreal when dealing with that menu. And the items themselves are now going to need widgets. They're going to use them as indicators, not menus. Basically, now I've cut out the middleman. Less menus, more mayhem. The middleman is always the enemy. Remember that, kids. Never trust Big Brother. He's watching you even now. Eventually, the plan is items will be selected before the match, and they will pop up on your workstation when the match starts. As of right now, they just sit on the floor. You can pick them up and drop them. When the items collide with each other, there is a potential for similar items to stack on top of each other, and then the mesh changes when they stack. Eventually, that mesh change is going to be into a basket that's going to hold strawberries or apples or whatever the item is, but right now, it's a sphere. Art's coming. And right now, that's where the game is. It may not look like a lot, but it is a sizable amount of work for me to get this far. Did I mention this is a long journey ahead? Because it's a long journey ahead. I hope you have your walking shoes on. Next on the agenda, I want to continue with the item interactions and see if I can't program in the throwing mechanic and the placing on the countertops and stoves mechanic. Meaning, I need countertops and stoves. Then from there, it might be time to start basic modeling with animating, just so I have something to work with. I'm getting kind of bored staring at these gray checkerboards all the time. But art is hard. As always, this has been Broccoli G515, your least favorite vegetable, thanking you for watching. If you have any comments or questions, make sure to share them below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe and do all those other YouTube thingies as I make the progress of a snail caught in molasses. Until next time, get out there and create something.